Point right here on Morning Express. Thank you for joining us. In case you're joining us now, a quick reintroduction of the guest panel that we have this morning. We have Honorable Didmas Baraza, who is a Kimilili Member of Parliament. We're also joined by Suleiman Bashir, who's an advocate. And we're also going to be joined from Mombasa by Maimuna Mwidau, who is a political analyst who is actually based in Mombasa. Now, the question that we're running this morning, and would like to hear from you, is in regards to Ruto's raise. And the question we're running is, do you think DP Ruto's foray into the coastal region will strengthen his political base ahead of his the 2022 election? Do you think that is what he is after? He's on record as saying he is not actually campaigning, but there are those who would beg to differ. I'll read some of your comments, and I see Juma Ramadan, who says, Coast is purely Orange Democratic Movement or Raila's followers. The leaders we elect can be compromised to follow Ruto, but not Mpwani. Is that true? Well, that's his opinion. What says you? Alex says that absolutely yes. Some of the leaders there have already declared their support for him. It's only that they cannot openly come out in public, maybe because they fear their party's strict measures and rules. Well, what is your take on that? Do let us know. The hashtag is KTN Morning Express. If you'd like to tweet, you can use the Twitter handles that are going to be displayed. I am at Michael G. Gitonga, and Trix is at Trixingado, and we'll be reading through your comments as we go along. Now, Deputy President William Ruto has told off his critics who claim his visit to the coast is political. Ruto says that he will visit his visit is within the mandate to tour any part of the country to oversee development projects.
The Deputy President, Dr. William Ruto, has been crisscrossing several parts of the coast region to launch and inspect development projects. The tour, that is expected to last almost a week, has raised eyebrows from his competitors who have accused him of using the visits to popularize his campaign to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2022 polls.
Leo sijakuja siasa. Kuna wengine wanajaza maneno kwa magazeti. Oh, Ruto ameenda pwani. Oh, Ruto ameenda sijui kutafuta nini. Mimi nataka niwaambie wanikome.
Ruto said he was not elected to stay in Nairobi and fix tea in the office. The Deputy President said the coastal visit was within his mandate to visit any part of the country.
Si pwani ni Kenya? Na naibu wa rais wa Kenya ni nani? Sini hasla huyu. Kwa hivyo nikitembea Mombasa iko shida gani?
Ruto said he has not encroached any of his critics' jobs and they should keep off.
Hawa watu wanalalamika ni kazi gani nimefanya ambayo ni yao. Ndio wananiuliza maswali ya nini?
All right, so hawa wananungunika, according to him, ni kazi gani ambaye Deputy President amefanya ambayo ni yao. But before we get into the discussion, Trixingado is just going to give us some facts and figures regarding the coastal region and why sometimes it provokes the interest that it does. And we are going to come to that super wall in just a second. But maybe let me start with you, Suleiman Bashir. What are your thoughts on those who feel that the Deputy President is actually not, is actually campaigning, but according to him, he says, well, he is just within his mandate as Deputy President of the country?
We cannot rule out the fact that the Deputy President is the principal assistant to the head of state. He has the mandate to go around the country to implement various projects. But then again, there is a certain reality that that our Deputy President is keenly interested in succeeding the office of the presidency come 2022. So clearly, the advantage he's playing that incumbency advantage in the sense that he is the deputy president. Yes, he has a role under the constitution to oversee certain projects, to implement, to see to it that certain projects are implemented, to launch certain projects. That is one thing that he's now. That gives him the upper hand.
Isn't that a duplication of roles? Because we have the Presidential Delivery Unit, we have CS Matiang'i, who was at one time mentioned by the President as one who's going to oversee some of the government projects. So wouldn't the Deputy President be in order to be doing other things other than, foreseeing projects?
Michael, when Kenyans were going to the elections, in line with the requirements under the law, they were voting for they were voting for the president. But then again, the president and the deputy were considered as a unit, as a single unit. The DP is regarded as a principal assistant to the head of state, meaning he plays the roles that are given to him by His Excellency the President in his presence, and in the absence, he can act for the president. In this regard, we have elected the deputy president through our election when we were electing President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2017. On the flip side, Mr. Matiang'i has been given a certain role by the head of state to chair or to be the head of members of the certain cabinet to see to it that certain roles are implemented. I don't see any problem with him reaching out to other places in the name of implementing projects. But various analysts are of the view that he is there to launch projects or to even campaign for himself. Look, the advantage that gives him that whatever he's doing cannot be done by, say, for instance, his competitor, Honorable Raila Odinga. Why? This is because Honorable Raila, in the event he goes around the country, Kenyans will not think that he's going there to implement certain projects. The advantage that the DP has is two-front. One, he's thinking, within the pretext of launching projects, that is what is giving him the upper hand in at the same time campaigning. But clearly, various analysts and bloggers were of the view that he's on the ground.
He's on the ground campaigning. All right, Honorable Didmas Baraza, I'll come to you, but allow me to bring in Maimuna, who is in the coast region. And maybe since the deputy president has been there or was there for a number of days, Maimuna, what are your thoughts and what is on the ground? What is it that you have observed from the deputy president's visit to the coast?
Thank you so much, Michael. As usual, whenever the deputy president comes to the coast, it becomes a very big issue, more or less like a national issue. But as far as I'm concerned, we are used to these routine visits by either the president or the deputy president and other leaders. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's just that every time the president comes to the coast, and by the time he leaves, it is the deputy president that has been coming to visit, organizing or reorganizing his strategies to make sure that his support is intact. And that has been a routine as far as we are concerned. It has happened many times. This is not the first time. Whether he's coming to initiate development projects or whether he's coming to do a fundraiser for some communities. He does the visits in a very well organized manner, and it has become a common routine for leaders to come after the other.
Okay, and Maimuna, as a political analyst, what do you read into the deputy president's coming to the coast? And like you mentioned, he seems to always, sort of follow after the president has been there. There are those pundits who feel that he is actually on the campaign trail trying to woo the coast region. There are others who feel that, well, he's just within his mandate, he's allowed to visit anywhere. He's allowed to visit anywhere.
Of course, Michael, he's within his mandate as a leader. He has a right to move around and inspect projects if he wants to. And then he has every right to campaign. He is a potential campaign candidate, actually, for 2022. So I don't see any reason why he cannot go around trying to figure out where his support in the coast or any other part of the country is. Because at the same time, the president and the Honorable Raila Odinga, they're always doing some projects. And in between those projects, there's a lot of politicking going on. Maybe it's not being seen the way it's seen for the deputy president. And we are not trying to say that he does not have a right to do so. Every political leader takes an opportunity to either campaign directly or indirectly. Lately, what we have seen is that the campaigns are going on indirectly through fundraisers, through church activities, and other activities. For instance, the agricultural show was going on recently in Mombasa. Most of the leaders were in Mombasa. They met with the president in State House, I think, to reaffirm their support to the government of the day. And then in that case, because the deputy president was not around, he made a point of coming in when the team has moved out and reorganize his team He lost a number of supporters, previous supporters, but he got new supporters right now. And his big base has been in Kilifi and some parts of Tana River, some parts of Kwale, and a little bit of Mombasa. So I think it is very political. If you want to read it differently, it is very political.
All right, Maimuna, I'm going to come back to you in just a bit, but allow me now to bring in Honorable Didmas Baraza. And there are those who are criticizing the Deputy President by virtue of the fact that the President said there should be no campaigns, and as a result, we should concentrate on development. And of course, I know you're going to say that launching projects is development, but double jobs being done by different people. We have the Presidential Delivery Unit who actually ensure that that is done. We have CS Matiang'i. Is the Deputy President really, just out to campaign?
You know, every time a person declares that he will be vying for a particular seat in the forthcoming general elections, then anything that that person does is perceived to be campaigning. It's a scenario of using what you have to get what you don't have. Now, let me educate Kenyans a little bit on the difference between the role that the DP is doing and that one of Matiang'i and the delivery unit. The DP is going to launch a project, either launch or commission a project. Matiang'i is involved in the nitty-gritties, were the BQ approved, how much was paid last time, what is the project status, when is it being completed, why is the contractor delaying in doing what it is doing. The DP's role is either to launch or commission. And that is part of a strategy to interact with the people who elected him. Now, those who are complaining that the Deputy President is campaigning, I want to tell them that I have never heard of anybody complaining that what the DP is supposed to do legitimately in his office or in his capacity as the Uhuru Kenyatta as the principal deputy is being delayed because of his absence. I've never told that there is some document that is supposed to sign in his office that he has not signed because he's somewhere campaigning. I think we should learn from the Deputy President that even if you work in a particular office, that even if you are here in KTN as a senior editor and when you know that you have nothing that you are doing or the workload has reduced, you can take a walk around the city and see how your journalists are collecting information, how they are doing, interact with the people to be able to get feedback. And I think I want to tell them that in life, Michael, if we are after a particular position like 10 people, you don't really have to listen to what they say. In fact, in life, what your computer say you should not do, do it. Do it. What your computer say you should be doing, don't do it. Because they usually plot, they design a way that so that you can fall into the ditch, so they can move ahead of you.
Okay. And I'll come back to you, Maimuna, and this is in regards to some of the reports with the Deputy President's visit this particular time that not very many coast leaders were seen to be present, which of course, when a president or the Deputy President is in an area, it is expected that those, of course, who are in support in the leadership, members of parliament, the governors, and all that would be there. But there seem to be a number of them missing. Do you read anything into this, Maimuna?
Michael, it's obvious previously what happened to two ODM members when they were in the team that was with the Deputy President. I think there's genuine fear among the leadership, the local leadership. And prior to the Deputy President coming into the coast, I think the President had a meeting with all the leadership from the coast. And I think support has been drummed up for the leaders to stay put within their specific areas and not to tanga-tanga, as they say. So I think there's genuine fear that should they try to move around and do otherwise, there could be repercussions. But at the same time, as far as I'm concerned, the Deputy President was very clear in some of his discussions that he has been coming to the coast, he's been fundraising for the people, And just to quote him, he said, mimi nawasaidia, nawachangia, lakini na nyinyi hamunirudishi mkono kila mara nikija. That was very, very political, that I always come here to give you support, but you never support me when I need the support. So I think let's be honest and say the way it is. He is campaigning, he is looking for support. He might get support in some areas, he may not get support in other areas. I think the governors, they have been quiet for a very long time. They have not taken up any position with regards to his visits or support. But he has, I think, garnered a few members, specifically from Kwale, and a little bit more in Kilifi district, Kilifi County.
All right, and let me come to you, Suleiman. And, well, one of the tips that we've seen with his visit this time is one with the Governor Granton Samboja, who has said that, you know, if he had needed the Deputy President's help, he would have gone directly to him, but he went to the President. Should that be read as possibly, you know, support that maybe that is dwindling?
Not the fact that Governor Samboja also ended up paying a visit to the former Premier. That's also another fact. And yesterday we saw him attacking the Deputy President. I think the problem in Taita Taveta County is there's a sort of a problem between the Assembly and the Office of the Governor. The Deputy President made certain comments that were aimed at advising or imploring the Governor to see to it that he sits down with the members of the County Assembly to sort out their differences in the interest of the people.
Actually, he was saying that it should not be dissolved.
Definitely. And I think Governor Samboja is usually trying to follow suit in what the professor of Makueni tried some time back. And ordinarily that had ended up making members of the County Assembly have their tail in between their legs to call and come singing their tunes and dancing their tunes to the office of the governor. That has happened quite frequently. But the sort of commentary that the Deputy President did, in my view, I'll translate that to mean that that is in the interest of the people of Taita Taveta County. But to revisit what Ms. Maimuna, the political analyst, had rightly put, we cannot separate between what politics the DP is engaging and the sort of project he is launching. Launching projects is in the interest of the people of Coast. On the flip side, engaging them in politics or politicking at this stage is quite a misfortune at this stage. As a country, this is the time that the President and the Deputy President to prove a point in coming up with certain projects and seeing to it that these projects are implemented. Come 2022, that is what they should show and bring to the table of Kenyans, tell them that 1, 2, 3 are the issues that we had implemented. We had also seen that previously the head of state had various times warned his lieutenants against engaging in politics is because he needs their support at this time. The Constitution solely describes his role, that's the role of the DP, as being a principal assistant to the president. That is to help the president in delivering. In the DP, when we find the DP engaging in politics at this stage, I think it is a problem. It is a serious problem.
All right, and I'll come to you, Didmas. And one of the things that the Deputy President was also on record saying, I think this was yesterday, was in regards to dams. And he said that the country is going to continue building dams as necessary. But what many Kenyans might feel is promises that are never fulfilled. We've talked about dams. We know that the Kimorere and Aror Dam issue has not fully been sorted out. But here he is promising more dams, but there's nothing to show for them. We still have stadiums that were promised by Jubilee government. There is nothing to show for them. Why make promises, say that you're launching projects, but at the same time, there is nothing really to show on what promises that you made before?
I'm not sure which projects government has not fulfilled. But
like I've mentioned, there's the dams that are still pending. There's a lot going on there. But even if we talk about stadiums, for example, they promised a certain number of stadiums. None of those have come to be.
We may say that the number of stadiums that President Uhuru Kenyatta promised Kenyans, he has not delivered them, or rather is delivering them at a slow pace. We know the dams that they are doing something. But I will answer your statement by making one analogy. You know, the fact that if you are a woman and every time you get pregnant, you miscarry. It doesn't mean that you give up.
But
from
these
getting pregnant
are too many miscarriages, Honorable Didmas Baraza, and miscarriages are different because those are an act of nature. These are controllable. When we talk about money that has been allocated to dams, that is not a miscarriage. It is just misappropriation of funds.
That's why I'm saying you cannot therefore say that President Uhuru Kenyatta has failed to deliver dams. There were, efforts to deliver dams. But of course, the fact that they are under investigations, I believe that a way must be found so that those dams, those projects continues, right? If the procurement was done wrongly, if we have people who embezzle funds meant for dams, they should be prosecuted, but that should not stop the dams from being constructed.
And that might not be the issue, Honorable Didmas Baraza. The question here is, we have the Deputy President promising that the country shall continue to invest in more dams, yet the ones that we've already tried to invest in have gone awry. Secondly, I've mentioned the stadiums. That one, there's even no contention. They promised stadiums, but none have been delivered.
I want to agree with you in some way, and that blame goes to the whole government, from President Uhuru Kenyatta to the cabinet, because these are people who
President
have
Uhuru Kenyatta, the Deputy President, and the cabinet.
And the cabinet, because all this is a group of people are the one who have the responsibility of ensuring that money, that they do budget estimates to Parliament, Parliament appropriates funds to various government entities, and then they follow up to implement these kind of projects. Because as Parliament, we have always appropriated funds to fund government projects. But you see now, when you have a government where you have even entities who are drawing money from exchequer and they are not legal entities, things like BBI, you've seen Baba moving around, appearing to be in government, who is paying him money. I mean, those kind of things. So this government, I can say, it has reached a place where we have a lot of confusion. And you remember one time I asked my president to tell Kenyans the role that Raila Odinga holds in government, which he has never answered me up to today.
Till today.
Yeah, because we were told Raila is in government. Even I'm fully aware as a member of parliament that we have a directive to the foreign embassies to treat the former prime minister as a sitting, like the same way they treat the deputy president. So those kind of things comes with a cost. So you ask yourself, where are we drawing this money to fund this lavish lifestyle of Raila Odinga?
And you're in government. You should be telling us. You're a member of parliament, so you should really be there in terms of representation. Suleiman, you wanted to say something?
I think it's very clear that the former premier is not in government. It's so clear to us as Kenyans. We know who is the president, who is the member, who is the deputy president. We know who are the members of the cabinet and who are members of parliament. I think one thing that is so unfortunate in this country is the clique of members of parliament that we have in our country. They seem so blinded to the reality. We have a number of stadia that are incomplete. That's clear. The media ordinarily follows up on those stories. It's so clear to us. We have roads that were launched, and 24 hours later, the tractors were carried away, were moved away. We have very many things that have happened in this country. We have very many ongoing court cases. It is time to restore public confidence in the members of the public. It is time to create opportunities for the youth. It is time to stop creating any more white elephant projects. So I think for me, what I'll tell you is we need a better oversight. As Kenyans, we are exercising our sovereignty directly or indirectly through our through our elected members. And these are the members who, under their own standing orders, have various roles in calling upon or inviting members of the cabinet secretaries. And that's the members of the executive. They have the power to question them. I've seen their standing orders. They ordinarily pose questions to them. They have the leeway, they have the platform of following up on various things. We have seen the advantage in having various members of parliament in removing the lead out of many things. Mr. Ketera, I remember, was able to expose a certain dossier sometimes back in parliament, sometimes back a few years back. It shows you that our members of parliament have a very critical role in seeing to it our successes as a country. But the problem, they are deliberately blinding themselves to a certain reality.
Okay, let me bring in Maimuna now, and away, moving away slightly from the deputy president, but looking at Jubilee as a party. We do know that the coastal region has often or has been a huge in support of Orange Democratic Movement. Would you say that Jubilee is making inroads? I mean, we have the likes of Aisha Jumwa who jumped ship. We have a number of members of parliament who've declared their support for the deputy president. Do you think that Jubilee is possibly making inroads into the coastal region?
Michael, it's very difficult to say that Jubilee is making inroads because the activities that have been happening are not really political party activities, but individual activities. Even when the deputy president is visiting the coast, he's just Honorable William Ruto as the deputy president, but doesn't seem to be seen like a Jubilee as such. So it's not easy to say that Jubilee has made any inroads as such, because I don't foresee first in 2022 that Jubilee would be there to contest in the region. ODM definitely has a stronghold here. Again, we are also looking at other issues as BBI and the Punguza Mizigo. These are the new issues that are emerging in the region, and that will determine which particular party will dominate. Currently, there's a lot of discussion in Pwani about the economy, the various activities that have been taking place here. Just show you that there's going to be a change. The ground is going to shift. It may not necessarily be called a Jubilee support area, but there might be new dynamics coming forward. And it will depend basically on the upcoming, hopefully, referendum and which party is going to really address the grievances of the coast region. And generally, we've seen coast normally goes towards the opposition, not necessarily the government, because the opposition tends to address issues that are of importance to the coast people. What I'm afraid of is that the coastal leadership has actually been very mum, and we are not even sure which direction they will follow, although they are currently in government, they are supporting government.
But would we read?
They've not shown leadership.
Sorry, would we read into anything like the likes of Mvurya, Gideon Mungaro, who have openly, shown support to Jubilee? Would that be a direction that maybe the coastal people are taking, if we're to judge it from their leaders?
As far as Mvurya is concerned in Kwale, I think Mvurya has done a great job as a governor, and that is where his support comes from, not as a political party aspirant or representation. With regards to Mungaro in Kilifi, I don't think he holds any ground in Kilifi. That ground is held by the governor, Amason Kingi, and Amason Kingi is fully in ODM. Aisha is one member of parliament, but the majority of them are still very strongly in ODM. So sometimes it's very difficult in coast to tell between a party representation and individual representation. Some individuals stand above the party, and some individuals come through the party in terms of their support.
All right, and coming back now to you, Didmas Baraza, stop playing around with the lives of people. This is the deputy president. We do not have time to waste on petitions. This was his words to the governor, Samboja, in Taita Taveta. And this, of course, would be viewed as maybe a statement made to win the support of the people in Taita Taveta. Do you think this is what is required?
Knowing the deputy president, because I have interacted with him for now 2-3 years, the DP is the kind of a person who will tell you his mind, who will tell you something that he understands is good for the general good, regardless of whether this statement is popular within your ranks or unpopular. And he felt that subjecting the county of Taveta through another election process to identify the governor, will install the service delivery, understanding the intrigues that comes with the elections. And he felt that dissolving the government of Taita Taveta should be the last resort, because we are Kenya. Taita Taveta, the people of Taita Taveta have the ability and the capacity to sit down, listen to each other, talk to each other, have a conversation, and they resolve issues without necessarily dissolving the government. And by the DP telling the governor that dissolving the county is a bit childish, because Samboja said, dissolve the county, dissolve my government. You know, like he has lost hope, which he shouldn't, because we have people who are much and willing to assist you by having, mediating or brokering dialogue, having the MCAs sit down and agree on something. I don't think that was a bad statement at all. And as a leader, you don't have to make a statement that is unpopular with the people. You make a statement that is popular with the people. That was justified in our constitution, that before you do anything, you must do public participation to be able to read the minds of the people as to whether they support or not. And the people of Taita Taveta are of the opinion that the government should not be dissolved, but they should address a few things that are of their concern to them.
Of concern to them. All right, and I want us to move away now from the coastal region as we wind up, and I'll come to you, Suleiman, on Mariga's clearance by IEBC. There are those who feel that IEBC was kind of arm-twisted to do that. From a legal perspective, you're an advocate. What is your take on that particular pronouncement by IEBC?
So I think for me, I was following the deliberations that were ongoing before that tribunal. The whole question was with respect to him being a registered voter, whether or not he registered within a certain time frame before the suspension of this and this and that. Some, just to put it clearly, Section 2 of the Elections Act defines who a registered voter is. It is simply defined to mean a certain a voter's register, sorry. It is simply defined to mean a certain document that is used to capture the details of the voters.
Correct.
And it goes on to includes an electronic device, meaning it is two-pronged. There's a document that is in hard copy, and also we are also supposed to be considerate of an electronic device. That's under the Elections Act. Taking you back to the Constitution again, under Article 99 and 83, the requirements to be a member of Parliament, in this case a member of the National Assembly and the Senate, there is a first requirement for one to be a registered voter. It doesn't say you ought to be a registered voter in a certain constituency. It simply says be a registered voter.
Registered voter.
In this regard, on I think the 14th, when the Speaker of the National Assembly declared that seat vacant by the Gazette notice, and on the 16th, as required by law and under the Elections Act, the IEBC went ahead to suspend an ongoing registration of voters, because that's again an envisage of the Constitution and the Elections Act. The registration and the ongoing registration of voters had been suspended, following the declaration of that vacancy by the Speaker on the 14th. When that happened, Mr. Mariga went to Starehe. That's where he registered
as a voter.
Then again, he was issued with an acknowledgement slip that bears his details. According to the Elections Act, an amendment that was done through a legal notice in 2017, it says when you get registered as a voter, you will be issued with an acknowledgement slip. This means in law that the fact that he has been issued with an acknowledgement slip, it is a proof of registration, that he has been registered as a voter. Now Mariga went to the headquarters of the IEBC armed with that acknowledgement slip, meaning it is a proof of registration. Our law is different from that of South Africa. Just to take you back, the Elections Act of South Africa, when compared with our law, requires any registered voter, if you want to vie, for instance, as a member of the National Assembly, you ought to be a registered voter in that specific place, wherever you want to vie. How? By profiling or bringing to the table. In fact, you're supposed to prove your address, where your place of abode, and very many factors that are supposed to be considered. Our law is silent on that. It doesn't provide for that. It merely requires one to be a registered voter. In my view, I followed the deliberations before the tribunal. The councils made their own submissions, and the interested party, in this case, Conchela, made her own submissions before that specific tribunal. His own submission, sorry. And following the certain findings by that tribunal, the tribunal had made that decision within the law. All its reasonings were anchored on the provisions of the law. Okay, so
IEBC was well above board in terms of declaring him as now able to vie.
Clearly, just to add this again, it is so unfortunate that at times when we have certain institutions that are given certain mandates, when they make their rulings or decisions, it is so unfortunate that as Kenyans, we many a times find or we try to find out political influence within those decisions.
All right, I want us to finish off with Maimuna, and maybe Maimuna, your thought, your submissions, your closing remarks, but also what maybe the coastal region feels about Mariga's, being cleared, and whether that is causing any conversation, and what the conversation might be at the coast. Maimuna, as you give us your closing comments as well.
Michael, I don't think the region would be very interested in what Mariga does. We would be interested if Mariga was playing football. As a region, we would want to see our Kenyan footballer doing well and excelling in that area which he's good in. But in terms of Kibra, I think that is up to the Kibra people to decide. Personally, I wish him well, but it is a wrong move. He is a good footballer, and his fame and his abilities in football may not necessarily translate into political leadership or a win in the politics. These are a totally different ball game, and he's used to a different game. But we wish him well.
All right, Maimuna, and maybe from your observation so far as a political analyst, I assume that you're able to look at, politicians and maybe tell which way they weigh. What is your take on Mariga? I mean, even after he was given the clearance, he didn't have much to say. Yet we know politicians ideally are required to win the hearts of the people through what they say.
I think from what I had observed, Mariga is not a person who speaks a lot. And most of the speaking was done by other politicians around him who are conversant with the game. He is conversant with a different kind of game where they don't speak much, but they act. So he's going to have a rough time. This is not the kind of game that he should have been in. But hopefully maybe he will learn something in the process. But there are other candidates. I think they have more experience, especially I think Imran. They've worked on the ground. They know the Kibra constituency very well. They know the issues there. And this is part of their life. And for Mariga to be thrown into this game, I think it's a shocker for him, but let's hope he's going to learn something. But I just wish he could have stuck to what he's really good at and kept the Kenyan flag flying in that direction.
All right. Thank you very much, Maimuna, for joining us this morning. I'll come to you, Didmas Baraza, your closing comments. And what would you say to those who feel that Jubilee really this time didn't put much thought into having McDonald Mariga as the flag bearer for Kibra? Kibra is known to have very active people in terms of politics. Even the residents of Kibra are very involved in what happens politically. Yet Mariga seems not quite in touch, especially when it comes to expressing himself, even to the people of Kibra.
First, as a person who participated in reviewing, in amending the electoral laws, the reason as to why we made it clear that when elections are coming, you have to freeze the process of enlisting people as voters to avoid a scenario where somebody transports people from other voting blocks to his constituency and registered. But the condition for you to be cleared to run for an election, you must be a voter. Doesn't matter where you registered from, whether in Mombasa, whether you are running in Nairobi or not. As long as you are a voter, then you participate in elections. That was the Mariga's case. As to what people are saying, that Mariga He should be concentrating in matters football. Mariga he doesn't speak too much. Mariga had retired from football, had returned back to this country.
But he could still do matters football in terms of coaching, training. There's a lot more that he can do.
Yeah, but you see, what the people of Kibra are looking for is someone who listens to them. When you are representing the people, the fundamental skill that we should have is the listening skill.
But you also need a skill to articulate the things.
Yeah, not necessarily articulating, processing, being used as a conveyor belt to transfer the interest and the feeling of your people to the authorities, to parliament, can be done in one way, either speaking or writing or just canvassing. You saw some reports about some members of parliament who has never uttered a word in the National Assembly, but they get elected every time. I know myself of a friend that I've never seen speak on the floor of the House, the Honorable Alex Kosgei, MP for Mgwen. But he beats all his people. He's a senior member of parliament. He's a second-term member of parliament. Yes, articulation is one of the aspects that a member of parliament or a representative of the people should have, but it's not always.
It's not
what
always.
is important is the art to listen to your people and being selfless. You know, the ability that when you are presented with a problem that bedevils your people, you own that problem that is yours and you move forward, and that is Mariga for you. So those who are panicking, saying things that Mariga is not here nor there, they should wait. We are coming to Kibera. We know where we are coming from. We know where we are going with Mariga, and we know what to do.
Are you part of the campaign team for Mariga?
Absolutely, I'm part of the campaign team.
Okay, so you're going to be speaking on his behalf.
Absolutely.
All right, we are wishing you all the best, and well, that's where we're going to wind up our political point this morning. Thank you very much, Honorable Didmas Baraza, Kimilili Member of Parliament, Suleiman Bashir, who's an advocate, and we're also joined by Maimuna Mwidao, our political analyst from Mombasa. Thank you for joining us this morning on Political Point. But that's where we wind up because of time. But do stay with us. We have more lined up for you, including the docket and